Counting down, just in case you can already see us, we have 4 more seconds till our live stream officially begins. 3, 2, 1. And I hope that you can see us and hear us right now. We are excited that you are joining us for our live stream today. Or if you're not joining us for the live part of the live stream, at least that you are watching this video later. We have a hot topic for you today. My name is Gabe.
And I am Anne-Marie. Yes, I am very excited to discuss this topic with you all today. We're going to be talking about gender equality. We'll talk about the exact definition of that in just a moment. But the reason we chose this topic, for one, is that it does appear in your March magazine. I know that it is still the end of February, but your March magazine is available now, friends. We're going to give you a little sneak peek of what you're going to find there. Page 22 is a lesson titled Gender Equality.
That's right. And you notice it's part of this social development or sustainable development goals series that we have in our magazine. If something is sustainable, that means it's not only a good practice for right now, but we can keep doing it theoretically until forever in the future, right? And so one aspect of that is the social idea of gender equality.
And we want to say hi to Lisa. Thank you very much for watching with us, Lisa. Okay, so what is gender equality? Let's define that right off the bat here. Gender equality, let me read the definition. It is the rights, responsibilities, and opportunities of individuals. And this is the idea that this is not dependent upon their gender.
That's right. So in Chinese, you might say 性别平等, 对不对? So, and the idea of equality applies to a lot of different aspects of life, right? Not just when it comes to gender, but maybe you've talked about racial equality, different things like that. And so I think more and more society is becoming more aware of the ways in which things are not equal.
I think you're definitely right about that. Hi to Joseph. Thank you so much for watching, Joseph. So yeah, a lot of times when we talk about gender equality, we are mostly focusing on women because it seems like women are the group of people that experience more discrimination, especially in the workplace. Not that men can't experience gender inequality, it's just that it's a lot more documented when it comes to women. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today.
That's right. I'm glad you mentioned discrimination. That's 5 syllables. It may be a big word for some of you, but that's the idea of 歧视, right? So it could include looking down on groups of other people or certain people in other groups. It could include just treating them a little bit differently because they belong to a certain category. For example, the obvious categories of men and women. Maybe there is some discrimination there.
That's right. So the first question here, or the next question rather, that we are going to be asking is, what are some typical types of discrimination that women do face? So friends, we want you to answer right now if you are watching. If you are a woman or if you're a man and you have experienced discrimination before, or if you have seen discrimination happen before, what was that? What happened?
Yeah, and there of course are a lot of studies that have been done about this topic. We could talk about this for hours. There are hours of YouTube video conversations about this topic in a lot of languages, right? So we can only cover a little amount here today. But when I thought about this, I thought about the fact that I have been working at Studio Classroom for 17 years.
That's a long time.
Okay, and if you include pre-college as an intern, what is that, 2001 or 2002? Oh man, that's over 20 years. And so it's more than half my life, basically. Wow. Yeah, and our CEO is a woman.
That's pretty amazing.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so, I know that gender equality is an issue, but it's not one that I have personally kind of experienced or seen from my coworkers. I haven't had coworkers here complain about the gender equality as much as maybe I've heard about it from outside places, because I think just by virtue of our boss being a woman, I guess people have been put in positions of leadership, men and women. And so it's, from what I've seen, there hasn't been as much of this complaining about the gender equality discrepancies?
It was definitely a problem at a place I worked for years ago before Studio Classroom. I'm going to share a little bit about my own experience right now. I worked for a very, very big sales company. I'm talking huge, national, international sales company. And I really liked my job, and I was pretty good at my job as well. And I worked there for a year, and there was kind of chatter going around that I was up for the promotion to an assistant manager. And when the day came, I didn't get the promotion. And at the time, I thought, I wonder why I didn't get it. I work really hard, and my numbers are really good, and I didn't really think much more about it. Well, when I was getting ready to leave the company, a year later when we moved to Taiwan, I got a letter in the mail from a group of women who were suing the company for discrimination. They said that men were getting promotions and women weren't. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. But since I came to Taiwan, I didn't think much more about it. Last week, Gabe, I Googled this lawsuit to see what happened. They proved on paper that men were getting paid in my position $1.50 more per hour over like the span of many, many years. And they made a $175 million payout to women who worked in the company.
Wow.
So they proved it on paper that there was a pay gap.
There was a pay gap. Can you explain a little bit what a pay gap is?
So a pay gap is the idea that in the same job, when you have the same experience and the same level of education, that men still get paid more than women.
That's right. So we might say all else things being equal, if you consider that everything is equal actually, right? No matter how society sees it, if there's a pay gap, that means that actually those people are not being treated the same way, right? And so, yeah, that was unfair treatment against you. And I was just reading about how this happens to a lot of women.
I guess it does. I never really thought much about the pay gap because it wasn't ever something that I had really come into contact with. But after reading this report, I was genuinely shocked last week when I found this out. Yeah,
well, I am too. But like I said, thankfully, we as a society are doing something about this issue, and even just talking about it. Sometimes we talk on the program about raising awareness, right? And that's kind of what we hope to do with some of our lessons as well, is raise awareness to talk about an issue and maybe do something about it.
I see that Joseph here has given us an example of discrimination that women might face, and that is the lack of education. Yes, that is actually the next on the list here, Joseph. In a lot of countries, women are not given equal access to education.
Okay, so that could be part of it, and I think that it's not only a lack of education, but maybe with the lack of education comes a continued perception of people who don't have what they think might be the proper education, right? And so, yeah, I think those issues go hand in hand. Gender inequality as well as there being a lack of education in certain parts of the world.
Definitely. I'm going to answer this question real quick before we get on to number 3. Someone's asking about my name, Anne Marie. Yes, this is something that Gabe teases me about on the program all the time.
Why?
My first name is Anne and my middle name is Marie, but my parents prefer that I go by both, so I've gone by Anne Marie my whole life.
And you prefer going by Anne Marie?
I do, yeah. I actually tried to go by just Anne for a while, and I really didn't like it. And there's a lot more Annes in the world than Anne Marie, so it got super confusing.
Well, if people only started calling you Anne, then you might think that that's not fair to Marie, right? Coming back to our topic of equality, right? Marie has to be equal with Anne.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, let's let's get back to it. I was curious about the equality around the world, basically, specifically where Taiwan ranks, because we live in Taiwan,
Right.
And where we rank as far as gender equality. I was surprised, you might say pleasantly surprised, okay? This is what the research shows as of August 2023, so not too far in the past. Taiwan ranks, do you want to guess? Do you guys want to guess?
You guys should guess because you already told me.
I already told you, yeah. Well, we don't have a lot of time for everybody to write their answers, but Taiwan ranks 7th globally for gender equality, behind countries like Denmark, Norway, Switzerland, and Sweden. And so I'm thinking, what are they doing in Scandinavia that is so good? Maybe we should try to copy that.
Maternity leave. I know one of the main ones is really good maternity leave, paid maternity leave, flexible time so that women can be with their families. The Scandinavian countries are known for having really good policies like that.
They have really great policies. They treat their employees really well. You know, so that's very significant. After you have a baby, whether you're a father or a mother, it can be really stressful to try to juggle the different aspects of life, right? And it usually falls back on the mom, it falls back on the woman to do a lot more of the housework, to stay at home and take care of the kids. There's a lot of pressure for them to not only take care of their own children, but to take care of the sick and elderly, you know, among their relatives and things like that. And as we all know, nobody gets compensated. In other words, nobody gets paid to do those things that we just think parents should always do.
That's right. That's a really good point. So friends, can you think of any other areas where women typically experience discrimination in society or in the workforce? The other one that I thought of, and when I did a quick Google search, this seems to be a very common theme, is a lack to adequate health care, depending on what country you're from.
Oh, so how would that impact, you know, how we treat people?
I think in our society here in Taiwan, maybe this isn't a big issue. I don't know. I haven't studied it too much for Taiwan, but there are some countries around the world where maybe women aren't listened to when they go to the doctor, or because they're a woman, they can't go to the doctor as often as a man would. So it kind of depends on the situation.
Right. Well, there's a lot of reasons that contribute to this problem. And, you know, I want to share something that I kind of learned when I was in college. I studied communications, and part of that was taking communications theory. And we also learned a little bit about different social theories as well. And one thing that someone told me that stuck out to me was the idea, I think it was called the social classroom theory, or maybe just simply the classroom theory. And it goes like this. Basically, you can imagine a classroom where the professor is in the front, and the students are sitting in rows behind or in the classroom. And so if you can imagine sitting in each row, you're only facing forward at the professor. You're only facing at what you're being told, okay? So you can imagine it's a very different experience for people who are in the front right next to what they're being told, and then what in the back, and seeing how everybody in the classroom is treated. And that theory just made me become a little bit more aware. Like, I think about this every once in a while, because not only when it comes to gender, but when it comes to race, when it comes to the privilege that I may have here or somewhere else, or maybe the lack of privilege that somebody else experiences. I don't necessarily see that because of my position in the classroom, but the people behind me can definitely see what's going on.
I really like that illustration. That's super interesting. Well, friends, we reached out to all of you over on our Instagram, sc.hosts, and we asked what comments or questions you have when it comes to gender equality and discrimination. You guys had some interesting things to say. We're going to talk about a few of them. Eric said, here's the question: why are most pilots and presidents male worldwide? Not just in one specific country, but all over the world. Most pilots and presidents seem to be men.
Yeah, so what's the deal with that? Yeah, so you actually sent me an article. I've wondered about this before. Like, every single time I go on a flight, I can't remember. I've flown a lot in my life. I can't remember one time where I noticed a woman pilot.
Yeah, same. I've never thought about this question either, so I went and Googled it to just see what some of these articles have to say. And there's some in-depth things that are hard to explain here, but we are going to include the link to one particular article later on, friends. Yeah,
so basically what we found from that article was that only 4.6% of air transport pilots are women. And you know, that's not only due to gender inequality. You know, part of the research also suggested that it has to do with interest as well.
Okay.
However, with the person's experience in the article, I think she mentioned that her dad asked her, are there any women pilots? Can women be pilots? So he had this assumption back in the day, right? He had this assumption that women can't be pilots. And I think that's a part of the problem, is this assumption. And when people notice that there's nobody else like them in a group, it becomes harder to want to do something there.
I think you're definitely right about that. But what do you think about this, friends? Can you think of an explanation as to why there aren't more women presidents and pilots in the world? It's worth thinking about. Okay, so here's another question, and we did touch on this a little bit already. Bill said, when it comes to gender equality, does every country accomplish it? Well, no, Scandinavian countries seem to be doing the best. I was curious to see where the United States falls. It's not good.
No, it's not.
It's really not good. One list I saw ranked it at number 30 in the world. Another list ranked it at number 43. I think this is largely because of how bad maternity leave is in the States. It's not, legally, employers don't have to provide paid maternity leave.
Right. And so if we can change those legal policies, then we can start to see people being treated a little more fairly, a little more equally, and happier employees and happier citizens.
Definitely. Well, friends, this is a lot to talk about. This is a lot to think about. Do you have any final thoughts or questions that you want to say about gender equality? Now's the time to write them down in the comments. Do you have anything else you want to say, Gabe?
Well, not really right now. I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah.
Again, it's a really in-depth topic, you know, to research and to find out more about. I guess I would ask a question though, like if you notice a problem in your company or in society, right? Maybe you didn't notice before because you're sitting at the front of the classroom, right? But someone points it out, or maybe a couple people point out the problem. Are you willing to now start to be a part of the solution, or is it just easier to sit back and continue doing what you're doing and let other people deal with the problem? I think that's a question a lot of us face, because the more we become aware of these issues, the more we realize we may have some responsibility there.
I think that's a really good point. Even as a woman, sometimes I want to just sit back and leave things alone because it would be too much hassle to deal with them. It's definitely something that we need to think about, friends. Thank you so much for joining us for this live stream. And if you're watching later, thank you again for watching. You can still drop your comments down below. You can join us next time for our next live stream in March.
Yes.
What date is that?
When is that? March 7th.
March 7th. Oh, okay.
Yes, March 7th. Thank you. All of our
Thank you,
lovely
team.
coworkers. Our team is telling us March 7th. You know, someone did have one final question.
Oh, okay.
I would just like to share my middle name, because Selena in the chat has asked, someone has a middle name besides the first name and last name? Yes, many people in the West do have a middle name, and mine is Mark. My middle name is after my father's first name.
I'm going to start calling you Gabriel since you go by Gabe.
That's okay. That's okay. I like Gabriel.
Okay, sounds good.
You can call me GH too, because sometimes I call you AM.
That's true.
Yeah, or you can call me GM. Anyway.
All right, friends, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining. Oh, ye who doesn't go by